Drop the gun, ma'am!
You have 5 seconds to leave.
Imagine 3 men in fake tactical vests with HOA Enforcement printed across the front, forcing their way into an elderly woman's home, ready to intimidate and take what wasn't theirs. That's exactly what happened to Mabel Johnson, an 80-year-old black grandmother living alone. What they didn't know was that Mabel wasn't weak, fragile, or scared. She was prepared, protected, and carrying a legacy they were never ready to face. Mabel Johnson still remembers that morning like a photograph burned into her mind. She, a black woman of 80 with silver curls pinned neatly under her scarf, was halfway through sipping her warm ginger tea when she caught sight of something off through the kitchen window. The reflection in the glass wasn't her own. It was the outline of a large, dark SUV crawling up her gravel driveway, moving slow and deliberate, like trouble arriving with a schedule. Mabel's eyesight wasn't what it used to be, but her instincts, sharp as ever. 3 figures stepped out of the vehicle, lined up shoulder to shoulder on her walkway like they practiced it. Same cheap matching polos, dark shades, and stiff postures that screamed wannabe authority. She'd seen men carry themselves like that before, men trying to look powerful without earning the right. "Lord have mercy," Mabel murmured under her breath. Here we go. She wasn't in any HOA. Her house was built by her late husband, Frank, long before committees and neighbor patrols decided they owned the world. Her home stood on that Riverstone Parish land since the 1950s. No board, no dues, no nosy meetings. Yet here they were, HOA Enforcement, stamped crooked on the side of that SUV. Anyone with sense could see the decal was homemade. Mabel didn't frighten easily. She came from a lineage carved from resilience. Her daddy fought in the World War. Her husband served in Vietnam. Her grandson never made it back from Afghanistan. Strength ran in her veins like blood. She stepped away from the window calmly, joints stiff but spirit unshaken, heading to the old oak cabinet above her stove. Behind a cookie tin and a folded quilt lay a small wooden box she hadn't opened in years. Inside rested the piece of history she cherished. Her father's service pistol, a Colt he carried overseas before bringing it home. Mabel still oiled it twice a month. It wasn't a relic to her. It was protection. Outside, fists pounded on her front door with the arrogance of people who assumed she'd fold. One man circled toward her shed, another rattled her window latch. The leader barked about violations and unpaid dues, voice loud enough to reach heaven. Mabel took her place in the hallway, grip steady, heart calm. They thought an old black woman living alone would be easy. They were about to learn something new. Have you ever heard of someone trying to bully an elderly homeowner, thinking they're weak, only to find out they picked the wrong one? Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where our viewers are tuning in from. If you believe in standing up for our elders and protecting those who paved the way for us, smash that like button and subscribe to Story Arc, because some battles aren't fought with strength. They're won with dignity, legacy, and courage. The hard kick against the door sent wood splintering across the entryway, but Mabel Johnson did not flinch. She stood a few feet back, half shielded by the narrow hallway wall, her father's Colt held low but ready. Her breath was steady, her voice calm inside her chest. She wasn't some trembling, helpless woman. She was a black matriarch who had buried loved ones, survived eras built to break her. And she was not about to surrender her home to pretenders in dollar store tactical vests. The door finally swung inward with a cracked hinge, and the first intruder stepped through with a cocky tilt to his head. He couldn't have been older than 30. Tattoos up his neck, cap pulled low, smirk on his face like he'd just kicked down a cardboard prop instead of a woman's front door. He spotted Mabel and hesitated for a second. Just a second, surprised she wasn't cowering. "Ma'am," he scoffed. "You can barely hold that thing. Put it down before you hurt yourself." Mabel's eyes didn't blink. Her voice came out low and controlled. "One more step in my house, and I'll defend it. You choose how this ends." He laughed, actually laughed, like her warning was a bedtime story. That arrogance was his mistake. He stepped forward. The shot wasn't loud to Mabel, just decisive. The Colt bucked in her hand, and the intruder crumpled to the floor with a cry, grabbing his leg. The two outside panicked. One tripped backward off the porch. The other yelled something about her being armed and bolted toward the SUV. But before they reached the vehicle, the side gate swung open. Her neighbor, a tall black veteran named Harold Hank McCoy, stepped into view, shotgun in hand, calm as a Sunday pastor. He lived 2 houses down and had seen the whole thing unfold on his security cameras. Hank didn't shout, didn't need to. He leveled the shotgun with practiced ease. "On the ground," Hank said, voice even. "Don't twitch unless you're ready to meet your maker today." The 2 men hit the dirt immediately, hands raised, fear overtaking all that fake authority they arrived with. Sirens began rising in the distance, not frantic, but certain, like justice was jogging up the street with purpose. Mabel lowered her weapon, exhaling slowly. It wasn't over yet, but the neighborhood had made its choice. She wasn't alone. By the time the sheriff's cruisers rolled onto Sycamore Lane, the scene outside Mabel Johnson's home spoke for itself. 2 intruders lay face down on the grass, hands zip-tied behind their backs with the plastic restraints they foolishly brought to use on her. The third, wounded but alive, was being tended to by paramedics. Hank McCoy stood nearby, shotgun lowered but not forgotten, his presence a silent message that this street protected its own. Mabel sat on her porch, wrapped in a shawl one of the officers offered, the Colt secured on a nearby table. She remained composed, though the weight of what happened sat heavy on her shoulders. Not regret, just the gravity of defending one's home. What shocked the deputies most wasn't the break-in itself, it was what the intruders confessed once separated. Panic loosened their tongues. They hadn't chosen Mabel randomly. They were following instructions from someone with influence, a sitting member of the actual HOA board from a nearby subdivision. Within 48 hours, detectives uncovered a scheme uglier than anyone expected. A corrupt HOA official had been compiling a list of elderly homeowners, specifically seniors living alone, often black, widowed, or with no immediate family nearby. He collected information about which houses might hold valuables, war medals, antiques, family keepsakes. Then he hired men to pose as HOA Enforcement, coaching them to sound legitimate so victims wouldn't resist. Mabel was supposed to be an easy target, someone they assumed would fold, panic, or comply. They miscalculated. As news spread, local stations picked up the story. Headlines described an elderly black homeowner standing her ground against fake officials preying on seniors. Neighbors who had once waved from a distance now stopped by her porch with casseroles, flowers, and gratitude, many admitting they had heard strange rumors but never thought something like this was happening on their street. Then came the trial. Though the community saw Mabel as a hero, the legal system still demanded answers. She was charged and summoned to court for discharging a firearm inside city limits and injuring an intruder. Mabel didn't tremble as she entered that courtroom. She walked with dignity, cane tapping lightly against the floor, aware that her actions would be judged. The prosecutor tried to paint her as reckless. But everyone in that courtroom understood something deeper. She hadn't just protected a house, she had defended history, dignity, and the right of a black elder to live without fear. The jury listened. The room waited. The verdict was moments away. When the jury returned, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Mabel Johnson stood at the front, her posture steady, hands resting atop her cane. The foreperson didn't need dramatic build-up. The truth was too clear for theatrics. Not guilty on all counts. A wave of relief moved through the room, not loud, not explosive, just a collective exhale of respect. Mabel simply nodded. No celebration, no fist raised. She wasn't proud of having to fire that weapon, only grateful she lived to tell her truth. The judge acknowledged her calm courage and court adjourned. Justice didn't stop there. The investigation continued, and within days, 2 HOA board members were arrested for organizing the scheme. One was caught trying to flee the state. They were charged with fraud, conspiracy, targeting vulnerable seniors, and aiding criminal impersonators. The stolen heirlooms recovered were matched to families, medals sent home, photo albums returned, wedding rings reunited with children who thought they'd been lost forever. The city issued Mabel a compensation check as a formal apology for the ordeal she endured. She turned it down. That money, she insisted, wouldn't change what happened. Instead, she proposed something better, a city-funded senior safety initiative. The program would provide free home security systems, volunteer check-ins, and a dedicated 24-hour hotline for elderly residents living alone, especially elders of color who were too often overlooked. The city approved it unanimously. If you believe our elders deserve protection, dignity, and a community that stands behind them, share this story so more people never forget their strength. And if you stand for justice and honoring those who paved the way, smash that like button and subscribe to Story Arc for more powerful stories that keep their legacy alive.